It was late. Too late, in fact. The kind of late when everything around you is silenced by the weight of the night. I had spent the day running errands, juggling work, and taking care of everything and everyone, and all I wanted was sleep. Deep, uninterrupted sleep. I had barely closed my eyes when I felt the distinct pressure of someone near me. My mind was foggy, the remnants of a tiring day still clouding my senses. It was the middle of the night, so I assumed it was Jason. He often woke up to grab a drink of water or check on the kids. I tried to ignore it, rolling over to find a more comfortable position. But then there was a soft touch, almost tentative, as if someone wasn't sure if they should disturb me. It didn't feel like Jason. My pulse quickened, and I forced my eyes open, straining to make out the figure beside me. Standing at the edge of my bed, barely visible in the moonlight, was Alex, our son, just 8 years old. His small frame seemed almost fragile in the dim light, and his eyes, wide and filled with a mixture of uncertainty and something deeper, locked with mine. I couldn't immediately process what I was seeing. "Alex?" My voice was thick with sleep, barely audible, but he heard me. He didn't speak for a moment, his gaze dropping briefly before returning to mine. "I heard you crying, Mom," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Crying? The words hit me like a slap. I hadn't been crying, at least I didn't think I had. I scanned my mind, trying to recall anything that could explain why my son would think I had been in tears. Nothing came to me. I sat up, trying to shake off the fog of sleep, reaching for him instinctively, pulling him close. It was then that I noticed it. The phone. He was holding something. A phone. Small and unfamiliar. My heart stopped in my chest. I didn't recognize it. It was not mine. My hands trembled as I took it from him, staring at the device in disbelief. "Where did you find this, Alex?" My voice cracked, but I forced myself to ask. He hesitated before answering, his eyes shifting away from mine. "It was under your bed. I was looking for my lost toy and I found it there." Under my bed. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I didn't understand. I looked down at the phone in my hands, dread pooling in my stomach. Jason. It had to be his. But how? Why was it under my bed? I unlocked it without thinking, my hands moving of their own accord. The screen flashed to life, revealing a string of messages that made my blood run cold. I scrolled through them, each text confirming what I couldn't yet fully comprehend. It was Jason's phone. And it wasn't just any phone, it was a phone that held secrets. And not the kind of secrets you bury away and never speak of. These were words, graphic, intimate exchanges between Jason and another woman. There were flirtations, long conversations that stretched through the night, promises of things I had never heard from him. I felt the room close in around me as I read each word. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen it? It wasn't just one or two messages. There were pictures. A picture of him, smiling. Familiar, yes, but there was something about it. Something about the way he looked in that image that made my stomach twist. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to shout at him, to demand answers, but my body was frozen. I couldn't move. I could feel tears welling in my eyes, but I couldn't cry. How long? How long had he been doing this behind my back? I looked at the phone again, and this time I noticed the timestamp. These messages weren't from last week or even last month. They were recent enough to shake me to my core. And in the midst of all of this, Alex was still standing there, his innocent face full of concern. "What's wrong, Mom?" His voice was small, fragile, and it broke me. I couldn't answer him. How could I? How could I tell my child that the very person who promised to protect and love us was now the one shattering everything? I put the phone down on the nightstand, unable to look at it any longer. I had to face Jason. I had to confront him, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. How did you confront someone you loved, someone you trusted with your entire soul, when you knew they had betrayed you? How could I even look at him? I glanced at Alex again. His little face was creased with confusion, and I realized for the first time how much I had taken for granted. I had been so caught up in the routine of daily life, work, chores, school, everything, that I had failed to notice the cracks forming in the foundation of my family, my marriage, my entire world. How would I explain this to him? How could I protect him from the chaos I now knew was coming? I couldn't protect him from the truth, not anymore. I could hear Jason's breathing from the other room, unaware of the storm that had just erupted in our lives. But I couldn't stay here, pretending everything was fine. I couldn't just go back to sleep, knowing what I now knew. The betrayal wasn't just a single act. It was a lifetime of lies, of stolen moments and hidden conversations that I had never been a part of. My heart felt heavy in my chest, a weight so unbearable I wasn't sure how much longer I could carry it. But in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't alone. I had Alex. And no matter how broken my heart felt, no matter how much the pain threatened to consume me, I had to be strong. For him. I wiped my eyes, trying to gather my thoughts. I had no idea what the future held, or how I would confront Jason, or how I would navigate the mess that was now my life. But one thing was clear. I couldn't go on pretending. I couldn't ignore the truth any longer, and I wouldn't let this destroy me, not in front of my son. I hugged Alex tighter, kissing the top of his head. I would face whatever came next, not just for myself, but for him. And somehow, despite the hurt, that thought gave me a small semblance of peace. I wasn't broken. I was just beginning to rebuild.